Blood on the deeds. Yeah, tonight we're diving into a story about generational crime, stolen land, and what happens when one woman decides it's time to collect on a debt that's been brewing for 200 years. So get this quote. They foreclosed on the dead. She foreclosed on the living. I mean, that really sets the stage, right? For centuries, you've got these three powerful families who, let's be honest, wrote their mortgages in blood. But what they never saw coming was one woman, Claudia Reid, who decided to flip the script and turn every single one of their stolen deeds into a death warrant.
Okay, so how do you really spot a staged suicide? It's a serious question. Official reports, well, they can be twisted, they can be manipulated. But the forensic evidence, the body itself, that never lies. And in this case, the body of a man named Nicholas Becker was telling a completely different story than the one on paper. It was basically screaming murder.
All right, let's look at the evidence, because this is where the official story just completely falls apart. On the one hand, they say suicide, but the truth? Look at the ligature mark on the neck. A real hanging pulls up, leaving a slanted mark. Becker's was perfectly horizontal. That's a classic sign of strangulation, probably with a wire. And then there's the blood settling, what the pros call lividity. His was all in his lower body. That means he was sitting or lying down when he died, and then strung up to make it look like a suicide. This wasn't a tragedy. It was a cleanup job, plain and simple.
So you gotta ask, why Nick Becker? Why him? Well, because he was the last honest man standing in their way. His little community bank held the key to everything, the original physical copies of the 1910 reparative deeds. We're talking about the actual documents that prove the fortunes of three massive dynasties were built on stolen land. He wouldn't play ball. He refused to hand them over, and for that, they killed him.
And look, to really get why these families would go so far, murder a man over some old papers, we've got to rewind the clock. Way, way back. This isn't just about one bank or one murder. This is about a 200-year grudge, a whole legacy built on theft and violence.
This timeline, wow, it just lays out this pattern of crime that gets worse and worse. It kicks off in 1825, with these families building their empires on the backs of enslaved people. Then in 1910, when reparations are finally granted, they just steal the land right back. Fast forward to 1976, and they're bombing a federal building to destroy the records. And by 1988, it gets deeply personal. They murder a pregnant teenager just to keep their secrets buried.
And at the absolute heart of all this are these deeds. The 1910 Reparative Deed Program. This was a federal act. A promise, really. It was supposed to be a massive transfer of wealth, granting almost 2 million acres of land to formerly enslaved black families and indentured Irish servants. It was meant to be justice, a debt paid. But for these powerful families, it was just something else to steal.
Just look at that number. 2,143, that's how many people died in the 1976 Cleveland bombing. And why? Because these families wanted to incinerate the last federal copies of the deeds. They were willing to commit an act of mass murder, killing over 2,000 innocent people, just to erase a paper trail. And that brings us to maybe their most twisted, personal crime. The story behind this line, $10,000 in her purse and a baby kicking like he knew. This is about Elizabeth Lizzie Girl Brock. She was 18, pregnant with the son of Joshua Petersen, an heir to this whole corrupt dynasty. He was actually going to leave it all for her, but his father, no way, he wouldn't allow it. So they had her run off the road, murdered her and her unborn child. Also, Joshua could be forced into an arranged marriage to keep the family's bloodline pure.
But you know, 2 centuries of that kind of evil, it doesn't go unanswered forever. There's always a breaking point. The murder of Nick Becker, who, it turns out, was a childhood friend of our hero Claudia Reid. That was the last straw. It was time. Time to assemble a team and finally collect the debt. This is where we meet the Boss Ladies crew.
And man, what a crew it is. You've got Claudia Reid, the teashop owner, who's secretly a brilliant strategist. She's the boss. You've got Rex, the boots-on-the-ground operator. Raven, an ex-NSA hacker who can get into literally anything. Chad, he's the muscle. And their ace in the hole, their most critical asset, Thalia Petersen, the woman on the inside. I mean, just look at the odds they're up against. It's a 5-person crew going up against this 3-headed monster. You've got the Petersen bankers, the Rockman oil tycoons, and the Mahoney political machine that keeps them all safe. It's an empire built over centuries. How do you even begin to fight that?
Well, you fight it with a secret weapon that is absolutely devastating. Thalia Rockman Petersen.
See, she was Joshua Petersens' wife, the one he was forced to marry after Lizzie Girl's murder. For 34 years, everyone just saw her as this broken trophy wife. But in reality, she was a one-woman intelligence agency, quietly collecting every receipt, every tape, every secret she needed to burn their entire world to the ground.
So once Thalia's evidence is in their hands, the clock starts ticking. They have exactly 96 hours to take down 3 dynasties before those families can swallow her hometown of Queens Village for good. This is the 96-hour reckon.
And their plan is brilliant. A 4-pronged attack designed for total chaos and maximum impact. Step 1, freeze the assets. Raven gets in and locks down all their money, so they can't run. Step 2, leak the truth. They drop all of Thalia's decades of evidence on the press. Step 3, unleash the music. This is the wild card. Thalia had secretly recorded folk albums, songs that tell the entire story of their crimes. And finally, step 4, burn it all down.
Yeah, this wasn't about a quiet, orderly takedown. As Rex, the cruise operator, says, this is the day the Empire dies screaming. They wanted to make them pay, publicly, for every single life they destroyed.
And the final blow, the absolute checkmate moment, is Thalia's live testimony. She gets up in front of the entire world and plays a 37-year-old cassette tape, the actual recording of her father and father-in-law ordering the hit on a pregnant teenager. And then, as if that's not enough, she picks up her guitar and sings the song she wrote about it. Game over. And just like that, the bill comes due. The empires crumble, and the final receipt gets written in federal indictments and billions of dollars in seized assets. So here's the final scoreboard. Let's see how they did. Status, dead? Kenner and Maxie Rockman, the patriarchs. Status, in custody? Joshua Petersen, along with the crooked politicians Bill and Cassandra Mahon. The entire leadership of this criminal enterprise, gone. Taken out in a single night.
And the money? What happened to all that stolen wealth? Well, the team seized over $12.4 billion in assets, and every single cent was used to create a new, fully funded reparations program, turning 2 centuries of blood money right back to the communities it was stolen from.
But this fund wasn't just about cutting checks. It was designed for real, lasting change. You can see it here. Direct payouts to the descendants of the families they wronged? Absolutely. But also community restoration grants to rebuild what they destroyed. And crucially, funds for future legal protections to make damn sure this can never, ever happen again.
So in the end, it was total victory. The empires are nothing but ash. The stolen land is returned, and the ghosts of people like Nick Becker and Lizzie Girl, well, they can finally be at peace.
And that brings us to the final word on the matter. Queens Village isn't just free now, it's paid for, in full, with interest. Justice wasn't just served, the debt was collected, balancing a ledger that had been written in blood for 200 years.